Hi, it's Sally again. How are we doing? And today I've got Harry Armytage again coming on to our show. Hey, Harry, how are you?
I'm good, Sally. Good morning.
I am so excited about talking to you today. This is going to be a really interesting sort of chat. So Harry's been working in a whole health clinic for the past 15 years and is extremely passionate about wellbeing. And today we were going to talk about devices in our modern day life and the risks it generates for our wellbeing. Well, this is a very topical issue. So, yes, what have you got to say about this, Harry? What are your thoughts?
Well, Sally, what are the devices that you're aware of in your life that give you this wonderful convenience that maybe your parents didn't have?
Yeah, well, for starters, you've got your mobile phone, you've got the laptop that we're talking on here, you've got your TV, you've got your iPads, you've got your games, you've got your Wi-Fi, you've got your Bluetooth, you've got, even the electronics in your car, you've got, everything's electronic. And
absolutely. You've got all the motors, you've got your sewing machine, the pool pump, all those things.
Yep, yeah.
So all of those things generate an electric field.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that as human beings, we are energetic. Mm-hmm. What I mean by that is that all our organs and all our organ systems interact with a range of frequencies. Yep. So they interact with light, and light is frequencies. And if you look at the way light can be categorized, it can go through the visible spectrum and then the invisible spectrum and the radiation and then, the harmful radiation like nuclear radiation. So it's only recently that we've become aware that the radiation that's generated from our devices, from our machines, which we call EMF or electromagnetic frequency, mm-hmm. has an impact on the body. And the sorts you've talked about some of the things, but I encourage anybody that's listening to pick up their mobile phone, have a look at it, and check how many Wi-Fi networks you could connect to if you had the password.
Whoa! Yeah, just from your house already.
From your house.
Come up on mine. Minimum.
Or from where you work. Now, how many could you hook up to now, Sal?
Yeah, well, if I just have a look on here, I've got
have a look.
Wi-Fi. Oh, it keeps going. There's just so many. Well,
you've got pages.
Yeah.
Pages. So a couple of dozen.
Yeah.
You're living in a detached house in Melbourne, right?
Yeah.
Imagine what you would see if you were living in a high-rise apartment block.
Whoa.
You might have access to many, many dozen, maybe more.
Yeah.
And you add to that the phones, the cordless phones, mm-hmm. the wireless baby monitors, and so on. We could go on adding them.
Yeah, what we were saying today, clock radios, not that they get off a lot of stuff. TVs in the bedrooms. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm not a fan of any devices in the bedroom. We've talked about
yeah, I know. Woo. Yeah.
And the reason for that is that the bedroom is really a room for two things.
Yeah.
Sleep and making babies. That's it. Nothing else. And the reason for that is that, it's time to rest and repair.
Yeah.
That's when the body rests and repairs.
Yeah.
And if we're subject to EMF, which of course we are, we can't actually avoid that unless you build a grid around your bedroom, which some people now are doing.
Yeah.
But if we can minimize that EMF exposure, it allows our body to repair better.
Yeah.
So it's about reducing the risk. It's about risk reduction. But we can think about, mobile phone towers. If you've got a signal on your mobile, it means you're getting the radiation from the tower. Because your phone's getting it. And the other thing to think about is high voltage power lines.
Yeah.
Not a nice thing to live next to.
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot of research behind this. I'd like to share some of this with you. There was a University of Colorado study in 1979 that showed that any childhood exposure to high voltage lines, that means, living next to them, raises the risk of cancer by a factor of 2 to 3.
Yeah, wow.
So if you live within 100 metres of high voltage power lines as a kid, you were 2 or 3 times as likely to receive cancer as an adult. There was a large-scale study done by the New York Department of Health in 1987 that confirmed that.
Yep.
And then there were later studies that showed that this EMF has effects on the brain and also has effects on the blood. It increases clotting.
Is that right? Sure.
Yeah. So we can look at dark field blood analysis. You can see the blood. When you put a mobile near someone, after a little while the blood clots more. You take the mobile away and it clots less and goes back.
Now, Harry, this was done from the 70s and 80s, and that's just the studies on just the EMF from the high voltage. Imagine what it's transformed into today. I mean, that's what's that, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Whoa.
Well, there were some studies done. Yeah, there were some studies done in the US as America electrified, and they looked at the correlation between cancer occurring and the pattern of electrification. They found that as towns and villages electrified, the incidence of cancer went up between 30 and 50%.
Whoa.
So just the impact of power lines alone. And that's something most of us don't have control over.
Yep.
That's in the background. Our grandparents and great-grandparents were not exposed to that, but we are.
Yeah, yeah.
And one.
It's massive. So from the onset of power, cancer increased 30 to 50%.
So every power cable emits radiation, whether or not you're using it.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's a good idea not to have power points behind your bed.
Yep.
Not to have TVs and other devices on the wall behind a children's bedroom.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. One of my real heroes is a woman called Professor Susan Greenfield.
Mm-hmm.
She's not only a professor, she's a baroness. How cool is that?
Yeah.
So she's at Cambridge, and she argues that the proliferation of screen exposure in children is occurring so rapidly that she is unsure whether our DNA is adapting fast enough.
Really? Ooh.
So she's a professor of pharmacology. She's interested in the impact of chemicals that industry make on brains and children's brains, but she's really concerned about this tsunami, really, of smartphone addiction and screen addiction. And there's a guy called Dr. Martin Blank at University of Columbia, one of the top 5 US universities. He's an associate professor.
Yep.
And he did a study which revealed that wireless baby monitors emit more radiation than a mobile phone.
Whoa. Than a mobile phone?
Than a mobile phone.
A baby monitor, wow.
And why would you do that to your baby?
Whoa. Well, I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't even have thought about it. Now that we're talking about it, I think, oh, yeah, that makes sense. But, you're doing it to keep the safety of the baby, and that's scary. And this research is only just coming out now. Can you imagine?
No, it's not. There's been a lot of research around, but it's been ignored. There was another guy who did the research into mobile phone impacts at Motorola, a guy called Robert Kane. I'm giving you these names in case the people listening would look them up.
Yep.
But one of the giants of the field is a guy called Professor Johansson at Sweden's Karolinska Institute and the largest medical university in Sweden. And this is the institute that awards the Nobel Prize for Medicine every year.
Yeah.
Very prestigious. And he's done lots of work on the impact of EMF. And it's his work that underlies some of the protection devices that I'll talk about towards the end.
Mm.
And there's another guy called Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, and he's demonstrated an absolute connection between EMF and the emergence of Lyme disease amongst those who are electro-hypersensitive. So these are the people who feel thunderstorms coming on before they come, who are really sensitive, that, they feel fields.
Mm.
So the bottom line is that EMF can be cancerous depending on your susceptibility.
Mm-hmm.
And the other issue is that the real risk is long-term low-level exposure to children with immature nervous systems. And particularly to children who later want to go on and have children themselves. So it's about risk and risk reduction. And Professor Samuel Milham argues that EMF should be classified as a group 1 carcinogen.
Whoa.
Which is the highest level. And he bases that on a study which was done in the 1930s. On a cancer cluster in a group called La Quinta, compared to a nearby Amish school. And the Amish don't use devices. So that was kind of a nice A-B study where you had a group of kids exposed and a group of kids not. So, you know, the convenience of these devices, Sal, I think, is displacing our wisdom.
Yeah, totally. Oh my God, to think, well, EMF is the #1 carcinogen. That's scary. That is really scary. And as you say, you know, it's the immature and the nervous system on the young people. I mean, and they're starting really, really young. I know from my kids, you know, before they were 2, they couldn't read or write, but they knew how to input into a laptop. And it is really scary. And as you say, there's a lot of research that's been done, but, you know, it's the long-term effect because the kids haven't had long enough to be old enough for the studies to follow it through. So we're understanding the impact now that, yes, it can impact them down the track, but the studies haven't been in place long enough, or the kids aren't old enough to see the actual long-term effects for it. And that's what really scares me. As you say already, you know, with reproductive stuff, there might be issues there. I mean, that already 30 years ago we knew from, I think we were talking about it the other day, carrying mobiles on the front of your belt, and that sort of affected your reproductive ability, and then they used to reposition them to the back of the belt, and then, you know, now the linking possibly with tumours with the earplugs, and that's more with the older group, but it's the younger group because they are starting so young. You know, it's the latest babysitter is to sit in front of the TV or to have a laptop or an iPad, going to the hairdresser or whatever. It's just easier and cheaper and keep them, you know, out of mischief. And there they are, you know, creating cancer. Oh, my God.
What concerns me more is the proliferation of smartphones. When I drive to work every day, increasing proportion of children looking at a smartphone on their way to school. These are young kids below puberty. There's no studies on that because they haven't been out long enough.
Well, I can tell you the trend is by 10, you're given a mobile phone because, one, you're having to go home yourself, or it's, you know, for security purposes so that parents can contact their kids. But all the time I'm seeing this with loads of kids with the neck down here because they're down. And the posture, I'm seeing it all the time with my clients. You know,
terrible.
Pull it back. It really, really scares me. And, you know, the weight of the head, the neck, you know, getting everything flowing through, it's really scary. So, you know, there's a physical side, but, you know, it's the impact and down the track. Whoa. And
so I'll share a bit of old wisdom with you. In the old days, when a child got sick, one of the first things mums would do would be to move the bed.
Right.
If the child continued to be sick, they would move the child to another bedroom.
Right.
And the reason they did that was because they understood through folklore and intuition that the position of the bed could be the cause of the disease.
Right. Whoa.
And the reason for that can be the field made by an underwater stream flowing under the house.
Yeah, right.
Moving water generates a field.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things to kind of avoid if you can. If you know you've got a water course running under the house, not such a good place to buy. So I'd like to just go through some of the what we can do to kind of reduce these risks. We can't eliminate them.
Yep.
A couple of years ago, France and Israel banned Wi-Fi in childcare centres.
Is that right?
Yeah. And Wi-Fi. And they restricted Wi-Fi to 1 hour at schools.
Wow. Where was this? This was, did you say
In
France?
France and Israel.
Wow. Yeah, yeah.
So for each of us who've got a smartphone, there's a thought to try and move it away from our body as much as we can. Yeah. So don't carry it on your body the whole time.
And definitely don't put it next to your bed when you go to sleep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if
out of the room,
if you absolutely have to, put it on airline mode.
Yeah.
It can
be charged downstairs. It doesn't have to be next to the bed. But no. My issue the other day when I was chatting with you was that I use it as my alarm. So I'm going to have to find something else to wake me up.
Well, you could get an alarm clock.
Yeah, and not one that you plug in, because when I measured that 30 years ago, that was letting off 11, whatever the counter things are, of EMF. The clock radios next to the bed were quite bad.
That's right.
Old school, wind it up.
A clock radio the other side of the room, it would be better.
Yeah.
Or battery
outside of the door. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I do, and I've shared this with you, I went down to Bunnings and I bought a $10 time clock, which turns our Wi-Fi off at 11 o'clock every night and turns it on again at 7 in the morning.
Yeah. See, I brought that up with the kids, and they said to me, Mum, the only reason you go to Bunnings is for the sausage. There's nothing else. And then I thought about it, and then I thought, well, I've got Foxtel and that's running through, and then I actually don't sit down till 10 o'clock, and the kids are in bed. That's my time, and, I might want to watch a doco on the telly or whatever. And then I'm thinking, well, cutting the Wi-Fi off, that cuts off the Foxtel. So, I've been trying to workshop with the kids, and it's very difficult to get them on board for starters. The amount of screaming and fighting I've had since I spoke to you last week about let's get the stuff out of the room, and they're literally wired and addicted, and they're just normal kids.
The reason is because the smartphones, this is stuff that Susan Greenfield talks about in a book called ID. It's a wonderful book. I encourage you to have a look at it.
Yeah.
The smartphones generate neurotransmitters, dopamine and serotonin.
Yeah.
And that's what addicts. And it is an addiction.
Yeah.
But in terms of your children, you and all the other mothers listening, I'd encourage you to talk to them like they're small adults.
Yeah.
About the risks. Empower them with information to manage their own risks.
Yeah.
It's not going to affect you and me, Sal. We've bred.
Yeah.
But they haven't.
Oh my God. I mean, they're just starting out in life, and we're midway through or a bit over the other side, whatever. But yeah. And
I don't know about over the other side.
Yeah, you're a spring chicken, baby. Yeah. When kids are going to be living to 100, it was only a few weeks ago that it was on the news or something. That
no, they're not.
Well, they're not going to reach to 100. Is that because they'll be sick beforehand?
This generation will not live as long as their parents.
Really? Because of these effects? Because of a
whole lot of effects. Food.
Yeah. Food, gut.
And so on. Yeah. If you look at the stats on the percentage of women that are infertile, you'd be shocked.
Mm.
If you look at the trend of that, you would be really shocked.
Mm.
One of the biggest things in my life as a young man was hoping to have children one day, have my own family.
Mm.
And to have that denied you is really a big deal.
Yeah, well, you only have to look at IVF and whatever. And it's interesting because I've been chatting to a number of women that are dealing with pregnancy or pre-pregnancy, and it's the exposure to the chemicals through the skincare and the beauty products and that sort of stuff. And then the food that you eat, so preparing your body before you even get pregnant. And this is where this comes into. What have you been exposed to? And what are the cells? What's happening to the cells and the body as a base?
We could do a whole nother series on what women put on their skin. My God.
Yeah.
Not for today.
But this is really something kids need to be aware of, so that they can, we can't give them all the choice, but because it's very difficult to manage, if they are actually aware and visually can see a few harmful effects. And it is scary to say, you just think it's your right to grow up and have kids, but you may not be able to because you were just exposed to too much of this radiation from a young age.
That's one risk. The other risks are, the hormone disruptors and so on. We can cover that in another session if you like.
Yeah.
Well, one of the other issues is high-rise apartments that are built of concrete.
Right.
And I was talking to Kate's partner, Cam.
Yep.
And I was saying, God, these apartments go up so quick, the precast concrete ones.
Yeah.
He was telling me they leak, when they don't seal the joints between the concrete sheets. But more importantly, they have reinforcing in them, those concrete sheets.
Yep.
And those concrete sheets round your apartment, round your home, can create an effect called a Faraday cage.
Yep.
And the Faraday cage is where you have a signal and it bounces around inside. It has difficulty getting out. So if you live in a high-rise apartment and you've got exposure to, dozens, if not more, radiations, some of them are going to get through and then they're going to bounce around. So they're not healthy places to bring up kids, I don't think.
Well, you're walking into this force field, this energetic shell that you're sort of stuck in there. Ooh. When you were talking about the Wi-Fi and how they cut it out in France and Israel in the childcare and whatever, when you think about it, every cafe here offers free Wi-Fi. You got getting cabs, they have free Wi-Fi, and you think of Asia, it's Wi-Fi everywhere. And what is Asia? It's just high rise after high rise, and that's the way we're becoming here. Population growth and all that sort of stuff. Everything's going up. It's not going out. And
we used to run an intensive program for kids with everything wrong with them, and we stopped doing it because it was too hard. We ran it for 15 days straight.
Yep.
10 hours a day, and the kids would come and they'd fly in from wherever, sometimes from Asia.
Yep.
And some of the kids from Singapore and India that we had, on every element that we measured, they were at the worst end. Every way we could measure them. So the impacts and the pressure, the biological impacts on kids in Asia and the developing countries is just extreme. It's not good. So going back to what we can do about it, I mean, I've talked to you about this thing about sleep hygiene.
Yep.
So that's about making sure bedrooms are dark.
Yep.
Because we diurnal rhythm and we want to generate melatonin so we can sleep.
Yep.
We get devices out of the bedroom.
Yep.
As far as we can. Really try and get those devices out. If we can't get them out, make sure they're on airline mode so they're not transmitting. And if you want to sleep well, it's really beneficial not to look at screens for an hour or so before bed.
An hour, is it? Yeah, I thought it was half an hour. Yep.
At least an hour. It's at least an hour. Because if it stimulates you, that's going to make it hard to settle down.
Yep.
Throw away your wireless baby monitors.
Yeah.
Throw them in.
That is scary. That is scary because that's from birth you're being exposed. I mean, you are generally, but to have it so close to you, that's really scary.
If you live within 100 meters of high frequency power lines, they're the big ones. Sell your house and move.
Yep.
And the other thing you can do, you can really think about that, is if you're wedded to your mobile, like I am.
Yeah.
Think about a protective device.
Yes.
Now, I've talked about Professor Johansson in Sweden. He's done a lot of the work underpinning this, and you can get portable devices now to carry with you, to put in your homes, put on your mobiles, in your clinics, which interact with the vibration, with the frequency that your phone's transmitting at, or your laptop or whatever, and convert it to a waveform that is not destructive to the human body. Yeah.
I have a little sticker thing in the back of my phone. Is yours like,
I have a thing like this.
Right.
It's based on the Swedish research, and I got it from a platform called Inner Origin. and I carry that.
Sorry, what name?
Inner Origin.
Inner Origin. Yeah, I'll have a look at that one. I think it's super important.
But there are quite a few devices on the market.
Yeah.
And I like this particular one because it for the first 2 weeks when you have it, I'm thinking of the right word. It matches your own biology, so it syncs to you. So you input.
Wave,
yeah. So the main thing is, this information hopefully will give you cause for thought, and those people that are watching.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as well as the sleep hygiene that you just went through, the wireless baby monitors, get rid of them, move away from high frequency power lines, get a protective device. But the other thing is start being aware of some of the impacts that it could impact on your reproduction, on your even just in schooling, being able to focus on stuff, being aware of some of the risks and some of the research that's out there, just that's saying it's not safe, and that being aware of Wi-Fi where it is, because we just take it for granted. And when you pointed out the high-rise buildings, that's really scary. It is actually really scary. And you're being exposed without even knowing about it. So mum's got a baby in a pram going off for coffee and sitting in the cafe for a couple of hours, and Wi-Fi's all around. It's literally all around. Even walking down the street with power lines everywhere. Do you think power lines in the ground are safer than power lines in the air? Because then it's...
They're actually more problematical because you don't see them.
Yeah, and the effect, you're growing fruit and veggies and it could have all the power lines underground.
Yeah, particularly the high frequency, the big ones.
Yeah.
Most of the power in Canberra is underground or on back fences.
Yeah. You just don't.
But it's the high frequency stuff, the 400 volt. That's really dangerous.
Yeah. Look, I think the first step for my kids, for starters, is do the basic, get the devices out, but also just start making them be aware of where Wi-Fi is and how it's not safe for you, and the impact it could have on them down the track. And we don't know. It's just we haven't had long enough to know the real impact of what can happen to the kids as they grow up and adults, and brain right through. So everything's connected, as we know. So you're absorbing
your devices. Yeah. Turn your devices off to airline mode if you cannot get them out of the bedroom.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a 24/7, high-tech world. It's just non-stop, and it's borderless. And, here we are talking on technology to each other through the Wi-Fi. So, something that is in our lives, so we just have to learn to protect ourselves with it and limit it, I suppose. But I think these protective devices are going to be the way of the future, so that we can shield ourselves or, protect our energy from absorption. Yeah. Look, fascinating subject, Harry. So thank you so much for doing the research on this and coming on and chatting about it. It's really, really critical that we start being aware of it and then making some choices and implementing some action steps that can help protect us, I think, particularly for the kids. It really does scare me because, we're basic technology users, if you like, but, the upcoming wave, it's just for games, it's for lifestyle as well. Ours is lifestyle as well. But, reading a book is reading a book on an iPad now, and all the schooling is done through your iPad or your laptop, and it's not the old chalkboard anymore. Everything's Wi-Fi related. So, yeah.
Well, actually, e-book sales have peaked.
Yeah, right.
And they're dropping a bit. So there's something nice about the paper.
Yeah, touchy-feely. It's like buying online versus going into a shop and feeling the fabric or smelling the smells. I'm old school that way. And, you got to try stuff on. It's worth the time and effort.
Have a look at Susan Greenfield's book. Get it from the library if you like.
That's it, isn't it? Is that the one?
Yeah, ID. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds fantastic. Oh, fantastic. Maybe we can, when we post this, you can pop in a couple of the links to or the books that you spoke about or the research that you might think is interesting. So just mark that down. That'd be great.
Okay.
Anyway, awesome. Harry, it's been awesome as always chatting to you. We've got so many topical things to talk about over the next few weeks.
Chatting
with you. And thank you so much for doing the research behind it and bringing our awareness to all of this. It's really, really important.
My pleasure.
All righty, we'll go and have a beautiful day.
Yeah.
I'll see you soon, darling. Bye.